On the morning of February 24th, 2023, the Banfield home was peaceful until it suddenly wasn't. The calm was shattered by screams from an upstairs bedroom. Then gunshots rang out. When police arrived, they were met with a puzzling scene. 2 bodies, a knife, and a narrative that didn't quite add up. What truly happened inside that house? How did events escalate so violently? As investigators looked closer, disturbing truths emerged, transforming the case into one marked by betrayal, conspiracy, and murder. In 2003, at just 18 years old, Christine began her studies at Quinnipiac University in Connecticut, pursuing a nursing degree. During her first year in 2004, she met Brendan Robert Banfield, and the two quickly formed a relationship. After graduating in 2007, their relationship continued to grow, and in 2008, Brendan proposed. Following a nearly 2-year engagement, the couple married on June 12, 2010. Christine was a dedicated nurse who took great pride in her work, often enduring demanding 16-hour night shifts. Despite the physical toll, she found deep fulfillment in her career. She occasionally shared glimpses of her fitness journey on social media, posting from a local gym where Brendan would sometimes work out alongside her. Friends described Brendan as consistently supportive, encouraging her efforts and praising her progress. Christine once wrote about how much his motivation meant to her, especially after he noticed the positive impact her healthier routine had on her life. Brendan, by contrast, kept a much lower profile online and rarely shared personal details. He worked as a federal agent in the tax division, where he investigated cases involving fraud and tax evasion. Together, Christine and Brendan built a life rooted in mutual effort and a strong bond. They spent their time attending football games, hosting gatherings, going on vacations, and traveling abroad. To those around them, they appeared to be the image of a typical American couple, meeting young, growing together, and envisioning a promising future side by side. The couple first resided in New York before moving to Herndon, Virginia, where their home, worth over $1 million, was located in one of the city's most sought-after neighborhoods. Financially secure, they enjoyed high-paying careers and a comfortable lifestyle. Their work sometimes required travel, leaving them apart on occasion. Christine once shared on social media that she had to leave their dog at a pet hotel because both she and Brendan were traveling for work at the same time. In October 2017, Christine, then 32, announced on social media that she was 3 months pregnant. On March 30th, 2018, she gave birth to a baby girl. From then on, Christine's social media posts reflected her joy as a mother, sharing pictures of her family. In 2019, the Banfields decided to join the Cultural Care Au Pair program. For those unfamiliar, the program facilitates cultural exchange, allowing au pairs to live with families abroad, care for their children, and study, all while receiving accommodation, meals, and a stipend. In April 2019, Amanda, a young Brazilian woman, joined the family through the au pair program. Over the next 2 years, Amanda developed a close bond with the family. She shared photos of their trips, celebrations, and everyday life, showing a strong relationship with the Banfields. Christine even referred to Amanda as part of the family. Amanda's time with the Banfields ended in 2021, but she extended her stay for 6 months due to global travel restrictions. Encouraged by their positive experience, the Banfields sought another au pair, specifically someone Brazilian. They met Juliana Perez Magalhães, a 23-year-old nurse from Sao Paulo, Brazil. Juliana arrived in late 2021 after completing the au pair application process. Like Amanda, Juliana developed a good relationship with the family. While not as close as Amanda had been, her connection with the Banfields seemed strong enough for them to extend her stay for another year. However, everything changed on February 24, 2023. At approximately 7:50 a.m., a brief 911 call was made from Juliana's phone, but it ended abruptly. 13 minutes later, another call came through, during which Juliana reported that a friend was injured. Moments later, Brendan took the phone and told the dispatcher he had found his wife, Christine, with stab wounds in their upstairs bedroom and had shot a man named Ryan. Police arrived within 10 minutes to find Ryan deceased and Christine gravely injured in the upstairs bedroom. Christine was rushed to a nearby hospital after the incident. Fortunately, the couple's 4-year-old daughter, who was in the house at the time, was unharmed. However, Christine succumbed to her injuries and passed away shortly after arriving at the hospital. Brendan was also hospitalized due to a leg injury. Preliminary reports from the police revealed that the deceased man found at the scene was Joseph Ryan, a 38-year-old. According to the initial investigation, Ryan allegedly broke into the Banfield home, attacked Christine with a knife, and was fatally shot by Brendan shortly thereafter. This was all the information made available at the time. After being discharged from the hospital, Brendan refused to speak with the detectives or the media about the events that had unfolded. Juliana, on the other hand, cooperated fully. She provided her account to the police, signing a formal statement. Juliana claimed that on the morning of the incident, she had arrived at the Banfield residence for work and witnessed Joseph Ryan forcefully entering the home. Panicked, she called Brendan, who was not home at the time, and asked for help. Brendan reportedly advised her to stay calm and assured her he would be there within minutes. Juliana stated that she waited outside the house for her safety until Brendan arrived. Once he got there, the two entered the home together and found Christine gravely injured. They also came face to face with Joseph Ryan, who was still inside. According to her account, a physical altercation ensued between Brendan and Ryan, during which Brendan managed to grab a firearm kept in the house and fired multiple shots at Ryan, killing him. Brendan later corroborated Juliana's account, claiming he acted in self-defense. However, one puzzling detail emerged from Juliana's statement. She mentioned arriving at the Banfield home early that morning to start her work. This raised questions, as au pairs typically reside in the homes of their host families. It remained unclear where Juliana had been before arriving at the house. For months, the police withheld information about the investigation, opting to keep their findings confidential. Meanwhile, neighbors reported seeing Juliana at the Banfield residence frequently. Though it was uncertain whether she was still living there, she was often seen with the couple's daughter, leading to speculation that she might still be working as her nanny. By August 2023, Juliana posted on social media that she was looking for a nanny position in the area. Given that au pairs are not allowed to seek additional employment while participating in the program, this suggested that Juliana was no longer part of the program at that point. After more than 7 months of investigation, law enforcement pieced together key evidence and forensic data to shed light on the case. According to Juliana's own statements to her family in Brazil, the police concluded that Joseph Ryan had killed Christine due to a disagreement, as the two had allegedly been in a relationship. However, the case took a shocking turn on October 19, 2023, when Juliana was arrested. She was taken by surprise as the police charged her with second-degree murder, alleging that it was she, not Brendan, who had fired the fatal shots at Joseph Ryan. Investigators also concluded that Brendan had not been home at the time of the shooting, contradicting their earlier statements. Juliana was subsequently taken to the Fairfax County Detention Center. Initially, the public rallied behind Juliana, hailing her as a hero who acted in defense of the family that had welcomed her into their home. Many sympathized with Brendan as well, believing he had lied to protect Juliana, knowing her temporary visa status could jeopardize her future in the country. However, police later revealed that there were no signs of forced entry at the Banfield residence, suggesting that Joseph Ryan may have been let in willingly, potentially by Christine herself. Questions also arose about whether Juliana had known Joseph Ryan prior to the incident. These revelations shifted public opinion dramatically. Supporters began to doubt Juliana's version of events as theories circulated online. The most popular theory suggested that Juliana and Brendan had been romantically involved and had orchestrated the incident to eliminate Christine. Speculation grew that a divorce would have forced Brendan to split his assets with Christine, so he and Juliana allegedly staged an attack, using Joseph Ryan as a scapegoat. Another theory proposed that Brendan and Juliana had been traveling together on the day of the incident and returned home to find Christine and Joseph confronting them. In this scenario, Joseph was believed to be a private investigator hired by Christine to confirm her suspicions about an affair. A violent altercation ensued, resulting in Christine and Joseph's deaths. A third theory speculated that Christine and Joseph had been romantically involved, and that Brendan, upon discovering them together, killed them both in a fit of rage. Juliana, loyal to Brendan, allegedly covered for him, and the two began a relationship afterward. During her first court hearing, Juliana testified that on the morning of the incident, Christine had given her and the 4-year-old daughter tickets to the zoo so she could have some alone time. According to Juliana, Christine had planned to meet Joseph Ryan, whom she had met on a dating site. Juliana claimed she had forgotten the child's lunch and returned to the house to retrieve it, only to see an unfamiliar car parked in the driveway and a man, later identified as Joseph Ryan, entering the house. Alarmed, Juliana called Brendan, who instructed her to wait outside until he arrived. When Brendan arrived, they both entered the house together. Juliana admitted to making the initial 911 call but hanging up quickly, unsure of what to say. Juliana took the Banfield's young daughter to the basement for safety, while Brendan grabbed his firearm and prepared to confront the situation. Moments later, noises from the upstairs bedroom caught their attention. They rushed to the room and found Joseph Ryan standing over Christine, who was lying naked on the bed, while Joseph, still dressed, held a knife. Brendan pointed his gun at Joseph, demanding he drop the weapon, but Joseph threatened to harm Christine if Brendan didn't lower his gun. What happened next was a chaotic and horrifying series of events. Joseph began stabbing Christine as Brendan fired his gun. Most of the shots missed their mark, failing to incapacitate Joseph, who continued attacking Christine. Desperate, Brendan yelled to Juliana to retrieve another firearm stored in a safe in the bathroom. When Juliana returned, instead of handing the gun to Brendan, she fired a fatal shot into Joseph's heart, ending the attack. The two then called 911 to report what had happened. Juliana's defense relied on this account, arguing that she acted purely in self-defense. However, the prosecution painted an entirely different picture during the hearing. They alleged that Brendan and Juliana had been romantically involved for months and that the entire incident had been premeditated. According to the prosecution, Brendan pretended to leave for work that morning but stayed nearby, waiting for a call from Juliana. The prosecution claimed that Joseph Ryan was lured to the Banfield home under false pretenses, believing he was meeting Christine for a romantic encounter. Allegedly, either Brendan or Juliana had created a fake profile of Christine on a dating site, communicating with Joseph to arrange the meeting. Friends and family of Christine, who later saw these conversations, described them as odd, claiming the writing style didn't match Christine's. On the day of the crime, Joseph reportedly arrived at the house and was greeted by Juliana, explaining the lack of forced entry. Shortly after, he was ambushed by Brendan, according to the prosecution's theory. They argued that the couple meticulously planned the scene to eliminate Christine, thus allowing Brendan to avoid dividing his assets in a divorce and to live a wealthy life with Juliana. A witness from a shooting range testified that Brendan and Juliana had visited the facility 2 months before the crime. Additionally, Brendan returned alone a month later to purchase a firearm, the same firearm Juliana used to kill Joseph. Investigators also revealed that both Brendan and Juliana replaced their cell phones just 4 days before the incident, which prosecutors saw as further evidence of premeditation. Photos taken of the Banfield home after Juliana's arrest showed significant changes. The room that had once belonged to Juliana was empty, and her belongings, clothing, makeup, and personal items had been moved into Brendan's bedroom. All photos of Christine and Brendan with their daughter had been removed and replaced with pictures of Brendan and Juliana, some of which included the child. While Juliana's defense acknowledged the possibility of a relationship between her and Brendan, they insisted it was not serious. They argued that both Brendan and Christine had been unfaithful to each other, casting doubt on the prosecution's narrative of a well-planned conspiracy. Brendan invoked the Fifth Amendment during his testimony, refusing to answer questions that could incriminate him, and provided minimal responses throughout the hearing. The prosecution also brought up Juliana's attempt to obtain a new passport while her original had been confiscated during the investigation. They argued that this suggested an intent to flee the country. Juliana's defense countered, explaining that they had advised her to apply for a new passport as a valid form of identification, emphasizing there was no plan to escape. Despite this, the judge denied Juliana bail, ordering her to remain in custody until her trial. Meanwhile, Brendan was released but remained under investigation. Initially, he claimed responsibility for shooting Joseph Ryan, but after forensic evidence proved Juliana had fired the fatal shot, he altered his account. The Banfield's daughter was placed in the care of relatives as the legal proceedings continued. Months later, on September 16, 2024, police arrested Brendan Banfield, charging him with first-degree murder for the deaths of both Christine and Joseph. Prosecutors alleged that Brendan had conspired to kill them at the family's home, using a firearm in the commission of the crime. While the authorities did not disclose specific evidence linking Brendan to the murders, they revealed that he and Juliana had planned a trip to Brazil just days before his arrest. During Brendan's first hearing, it was revealed that his relationship with Juliana began in August 2022, nearly a year after she started working for the family. At the time, Juliana had been in a long-distance relationship with a boyfriend in Brazil. The prosecution presented evidence that a month before the crime, Brendan and Juliana had traveled together to New York, stayed in a hotel, and attended a show. On the morning of the incident, Brendan claimed he left home at 7:11 a.m. and stopped at a McDonald's for coffee, a routine part of his commute. He said he received a call from Juliana around 7:37 a.m., reporting that an unknown man had entered the house. Brendan said he rushed home, leaving his breakfast unfinished. However, during the hearing, prosecutors played the recording of Juliana's initial 911 call, which lasted only 8 seconds. In the background, Joseph Ryan could be heard groaning in pain before the call abruptly ended. When asked about this, Brendan claimed the dropped call was due to their inability to locate the phone after it fell. He admitted to instructing Juliana to retrieve the second firearm from the bathroom safe as a precaution. However, instead of handing him the gun, Juliana used it to shoot Joseph in the heart. The timeline of events raised significant questions. Authorities noted a 13-minute gap between Juliana's first 911 call and her second. Joseph Ryan was already injured by the time of the first 911 call, raising questions about why it took Brendan and Juliana 13 minutes to make the second call. Authorities believe this time was used to stage the crime scene. According to the prosecutor, Joseph's body was repositioned to make it appear as though he had been actively attacking Christine. Investigators revealed that the knife found at the scene belonged to Joseph Ryan and had been brought by him in a backpack. In conversations with the person he thought was Christine, Joseph had been encouraged to bring the knife due to a shared interest in certain fantasies. The website where Christine and Joseph communicated was geared toward casual encounters with a focus on fetishes involving pain and pleasure. This detail, authorities argued, conveniently supplied Brendan and Juliana with a prop to frame the scene. Paramedics who responded to the incident noted several inconsistencies. Both Christine and Joseph's bodies appeared to have been moved and repositioned. Joseph's arms were crossed and stained with Christine's blood in a way that would not have been possible given the fatal shot he sustained to the chest. Additionally, while paramedics worked to save Christine, Brendan reportedly showed little concern for her condition, asking repeatedly whether Joseph was still alive. Authorities believe this indicated Brendan's fear that Joseph might survive and reveal the truth about what happened. Blood spatter analysis further supported the theory of staging. Reports from forensic investigators finalized in August 2023 confirmed that both Christine and Joseph had been moved after sustaining their fatal injuries. This evidence, along with text messages and witness statements, began to piece together the chain of events leading up to the crime. Before the incident, Joseph had confided in a friend about his communications with Christine. He mentioned that she claimed her marriage was open and that both she and her husband pursued relationships with others. Based on their online conversations, Joseph shared explicit details, including photos of the items he planned to bring to their encounter: a knife, cuffs, and belts. He also mentioned plans to cut Christine's pajamas with the knife, which matched the discovery of a torn pajama set in the bedroom. However, police found that Joseph had never spoken with Christine over the phone or through video chat. This detail became critical to the case. Authorities suspected that the person behind the profile was either Brendan or Juliana. If Joseph had spoken to Juliana, her distinct Brazilian accent would have raised suspicions. Yet none of Joseph's friends mentioned him bringing up such a detail. Investigators speculated that Brendan might have fabricated a backstory to explain any discrepancies, such as claiming Christine had lived in Brazil for a time, accounting for the accent. Joseph's friends, who were interviewed by police, described him as a peaceful individual and expressed disbelief that he could have harmed Christine. They believed he had been manipulated into the situation, which ultimately led to his death. Between Juliana's arrest on October 19, 2023, and Brendan's arrest on September 16, 2024, the two maintained consistent contact. In a recorded conversation, Juliana questioned Brendan, saying, "I hope you're not staying with me just because you're afraid I'll turn on you." Brendan responded by telling her to be quiet. This exchange, among other pieces of evidence, raised further suspicion of their involvement in the crime. By late October 2024, Juliana agreed to a plea deal to avoid a full trial. She pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter and agreed to testify against Brendan at his upcoming trial, scheduled for February 2025. The prosecution stated that Juliana's sentencing would depend heavily on her testimony and the outcome of Brendan's case. During her confession, Juliana revealed how Brendan masterminded the entire plan. Their romantic relationship began in August 2022, roughly a year after Juliana started working for the family. By fall 2022, Brendan expressed his desire to get rid of Christine and began orchestrating the crime. Using a fake profile on an adult dating site that catered to fetish-based fantasies, Brendan posed as Christine and initiated contact with Joseph Ryan. Over time, he lured Joseph into arranging a meeting at the Banfield home, instructing him to bring specific items, including a knife. To make the setup more convincing, Brendan asked Juliana to speak to Joseph via a voice call on Telegram, pretending to be Christine. Juliana confessed that she was reluctant to participate but ultimately complied. On the day of the incident, Brendan waited nearby after leaving the house under the pretense of heading to work. He instructed Juliana to handle Joseph's arrival and to play along with the charade. Juliana admitted to feeling trapped and fearful, but said Brendan's control over her left her with little choice. Juliana followed the plan and made the calls as instructed. However, Christine's phone went straight to voicemail because Brendan, before leaving that morning, had turned it off and hidden it in a kitchen drawer. Brendan, waiting at a nearby McDonald's, received Juliana's call and pretended to attempt to call Christine, knowing full well it would also go to voicemail. He then returned to the house, picked up Juliana and the couple's daughter, and entered the home through the basement. They left the child there before heading upstairs to the bedroom Brendan shared with Christine. Brendan carried his service weapon, and Juliana had the firearm Brendan had given her earlier that morning. When they entered the bedroom, they found Joseph holding Christine, who was naked. Brendan shouted, "Police!" before shooting Joseph in the head, causing him to fall away from Christine. Juliana then made the first 911 call, during which Joseph could be heard groaning in pain. Following Brendan's instructions, Juliana ended the call prematurely. Afterward, Brendan grabbed the knife Joseph had brought and stabbed Christine multiple times. Meanwhile, the 911 operator attempted to call back, but Juliana did not answer. Then Juliana noticed Joseph was still moving. She fired the fatal shot into his heart, as later confirmed by the medical examiner. Brendan then staged the crime scene, moving Christine and Joseph's bodies closer together to make it appear as though Joseph had attacked Christine. Once the staging was complete, Brendan instructed Juliana to make a second 911 call, in which she reported that an intruder had broken into the Banfield home and attacked Christine. When the police and paramedics arrived, Brendan accompanied Christine to the hospital, while Juliana went to the police department with the couple's daughter. The events that followed became the subject of widespread public scrutiny. Juliana's confession left little doubt that the crime was a conspiracy orchestrated by her and Brendan to murder Christine and begin a life together. Brendan's trial is set for February 2025, with Juliana's sentencing scheduled to follow shortly thereafter. Joseph Ryan's mother has avoided interviews to respect the investigation but made a poignant social media post after Brendan's arrest, stating that living without her only son has been unbearably difficult. She added that her hope for justice is the only thing keeping her going. Both Christine's and Brendan's families have expressed deep shock and sorrow over the events. Christine was laid to rest at Queen of All Saints Cemetery in Suffolk County, New York. Meanwhile, the couple's 6-year-old daughter is reportedly under the care of close relatives. As for Joseph Ryan, no information about his funeral has been made public. The families involved remain haunted by the tragedy, while the nation watches closely for justice to be served. In the early hours of August 2, 2015, precisely at 3 a.m., an urgent call was made to 911. Tom Martins, an older gentleman, reported in a frantic tone that his son-in-law, Jason Corbett, had assaulted his daughter, Molly. To protect her, Tom intervened and struck Jason on the head with a baseball bat. He mentioned Jason was bleeding heavily and might already be deceased. He urgently requested an ambulance to their location. Jason Corbett, a 39-year-old businessman from Limerick, Ireland, was known for his cheerful and kind personality. He had a twin brother named Wayne and a sister named Tracy. In 2003, at the age of 27, Jason married Margaret Fitzpatrick. They soon welcomed a son named Jack and a daughter named Sarah. Their family life appeared idyllic in Ireland until tragedy struck. In 2006, not long after Sarah's birth, Margaret experienced a severe asthma attack in the middle of the night. She woke Jason up, struggling to breathe. Despite Jason's efforts to help with medication and an inhaler, her condition deteriorated. In desperation, he called for an ambulance. However, Margaret sadly passed away en route to the hospital. At just 30 years old and serving as the director of a small packaging company in Ireland, Jason was left to raise their children, his 2-year-old son and 3-month-old daughter, alone. His friends noted his profound sadness and struggle following this loss. A year after Margaret's passing, Jason sought help with childcare and housekeeping duties. This led him to hire Molly Martins, a 25-year-old American woman. Molly arrived in Ireland from the United States in March 2008. A longtime friend of Jason's met her at the airport, but immediately harbored reservations about her suitability for the role of nanny and housekeeper. Molly appeared much younger than her age suggested and had a rather flamboyant style, sporting a bright coat with a fur collar, along with cowboy boots and heavy makeup. To this friend, she seemed more like someone out of theater than fitting for such significant responsibilities. Molly Martins grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee. She left Clemson University and decided to start afresh in Ireland. Molly quickly formed a strong bond with Jason's son and daughter, showing tenderness and care. Soon, Jason's close friends noticed a change. He was gradually healing after the loss of his first wife, appearing more lively and engaged. Feelings blossomed between Jason and Molly, leading to a romantic relationship. The couple, along with Jack and Sarah, enjoyed a vacation together. They had a wonderful time, growing closer while planning their future life. 2 years later, on Valentine's Day 2010, Jason invited Molly to a cafe where he proposed with a ring. Overjoyed, Molly began planning their wedding in America. She persuaded Jason to move to her home country, and he agreed. In 2011, Jason sold his house and relocated his job to the United States. The family settled in Davidson County, North Carolina, where Jason and Molly married in a ceremony attended by many relatives and friends from both America and Ireland. After their marriage, Molly worked as a swimming instructor, but mainly focused on caring for Jack and Sarah. Meanwhile, Jason held a managerial position in the United States. Initially happy, their marital relationship eventually began to deteriorate. This growing tension peaked on August 1, 2015, when Molly's parents, Tom and Sharon Martins, visited the Corbett family's home at around 11 p.m. Jason welcomed them in the driveway and helped with their luggage. Tom brought a baseball bat as a gift for Jack, Jason's son, who was out at a party with friends at the time. That evening, Jason, Molly, her parents, and Sarah had dinner together. They opted for pizza. Jack returned home close to midnight. However, Tom decided not to give him the baseball bat at such an hour, but intended to present it later instead. The following morning, after 11 p.m., the family retired for the night. Molly and Jason slept in the master bedroom on the first floor with the children, Jack and Sarah, in adjacent rooms. Molly's parents were accommodated in the guest room on the second floor. In the early of August 2nd, around 3 a.m., Tom Martins called 911. He claimed that his son-in-law, Jason, had attacked Molly and that he had struck Jason with a baseball bat in response. Tom urgently requested assistance. Unsure of Jason's condition, who lay unconscious and bleeding, the 911 dispatcher guided Tom and Molly through cardiopulmonary resuscitation procedures in an effort to revive Jason before medical help arrived. When police and ambulance services arrived 10 minutes later, they found Molly outside near a car appearing distraught and in shock, but without actual tears. Inside, they discovered the lifeless body of 39-year-old Jason Corbett in the main bedroom. Blood spattered across the bed, walls, and floor. Both Tom's and Molly's clothing bore bloodstains while blood marked Jason's body. Near Jason lay a baseball bat and a large cobblestone, both with traces of blood, as well as an overturned lamp. Throughout this ordeal, Jack and Sarah remained asleep in their rooms. Tom and Molly did not deny their involvement in Jason's death, asserting it was self-defense. They were taken to the station for questioning. At the police station, 66-year-old Tom Martins, an FBI veteran with 30 years of experience, stated that his son-in-law was insane and constantly tormented his daughter. According to Tom, Jason was drunk that evening. Everyone went to bed, but Tom woke up at night because he heard screams and loud voices on the first floor of the house. He jumped out of bed, grabbed a baseball bat, and ran downstairs. Tom entered the main bedroom and saw Jason holding Molly by the throat with both hands. He yelled at Jason to let her go, to which Jason turned to him and said he would kill her. Tom claimed his protective instincts kicked in instantly, so he hit Jason with the baseball bat, but noted that their forces were unequal. Jason didn't appear to feel the blow as he tried to drag Molly into the bathroom and shut the door. However, Tom intervened. Jason pushed the elderly man, making him fall, and causing his glasses to fly off. Tom confessed that at that moment he believed he was going to be. Jason spotted the bat on the floor and reached for it. At that point, Molly grabbed a stone and shouted, "Don't touch my dad." Then she struck her husband on the head with all her might. Following that, Tom seized the baseball bat and began hitting Jason until he fell to the floor. During questioning, 32-year-old Molly Corbett recounted the same story to investigators. She explained that her daughter Sarah woke up during the night screaming from night terrors. This woke Jason, who became very angry and lashed out at his wife. He started strangling her, threatening to kill her. Her father came to Molly's aid. Molly admitted hitting her husband on the head with a heavy stone to save her father. When asked where she got the stone, Molly replied that it had been on her bedside table. They had planned to paint cobblestones with their children for decorating flower beds with colorful stones. The woman couldn't recall how many times she hit her husband. She only mentioned it was a desperate fight for survival. Midway through the interrogation, Molly expressed enduring pain from being choked by her husband. Investigators photographed her neck, which bore a red mark in its center. Later, police compared these photos with those taken during her arrest and found no red marks on Molly's neck at detention time. She confessed that while there had been a fight between herself and her husband the day before the tragedy, it was then when Jason grabbed her by the arms and neck. Throughout questioning, she frequently complained of throat pain. Both Tom and Molly claimed in unison that Jason Corbett had been treating his wife brutally. However, his family provided conflicting accounts. Tracy Lynch, Jason Corbett's sister, shared insights about what she described as an unusual relationship between them. Dynamics observed during Jason's wedding to Molly indicated Molly exerted considerable control over Jason, often becoming upset if things didn't align with her expectations. Her reluctance to interact with Jason's visiting relatives raised further concerns. Additional alarm was added by the revelation of one of Molly's friends. This friend stated that Molly told everyone she had been friends with Jason's first wife Margaret, until Margaret died of cancer. This contradicted family reports, as everyone knew she had died of an asthma attack. Despite these red flags and attempts by Jason's family and friends to dissuade him from marrying Molly due to her odd behavior, the wedding proceeded. This event marked the beginning of a complicated and troubled union. Initially, Molly and Jason Corbett's marriage appeared harmonious. Molly formed a close bond with Jason's children, Jack and Sarah, treating them as her own. However, as their first wedding anniversary approached in 2012, Jason expressed a desire to return to Ireland, his homeland, citing unhappiness in a foreign country. This disclosure marked the beginning of a decline in the couple's relationship. Despite Jack and Sarah referring to as their mother, Jason resisted Molly's intentions to legally adopt them. He wanted to preserve the memory of their biological mother. During this period, Molly's behavior started to change noticeably. Jason grew increasingly concerned about her mental well-being, suspecting she might have a psychological disorder. He observed a stark contrast between her initially sweet demeanor and subsequent behavior, which he perceived as more manipulative and controlling. Molly began isolating Jason from his family, often curtailing his phone conversations with them to mere seconds. Following the untimely death of his first wife, Jason Corbett designated his sister Tracy Lynch as the legal guardian for his children, Jack and Sarah. In the event of his own demise, Tracy was well aware that if something to Jason, Molly would strongly contest the custody of the children. When Jason passed away, Tracy promptly traveled to North Carolina to file for custody, anticipating a legal battle with Molly, who also sought custody rights. During their strained marriage, Molly had sought legal counsel to understand her rights over Jason's children in the event of a divorce. Her lawyer advised her to document their disputes and accumulate incriminating evidence against Jason. Consequently, Molly began secretly recording their conversations. In these recordings, Molly appeared disengaged, often ignoring Jason's repeated questions while he escalated his voice. A close friend of Molly's disclosed that although Molly rarely discussed her marital issues, she began to express negative sentiments about Jason following his death. Molly confided in her friend that Jason was domineering and abusive. She accused him of forcing her into intimate acts, verbally abusing her, and progressively worsening in his treatment towards her. Despite these allegations, Molly did not report these incidents to the authorities. For days after Jason Corbett's tragic demise, his children Jack and Sarah, aged 10 and 8, were interviewed by a child welfare professional. In this interview, they shared observations about the relationship between their parents. Notably, they mentioned their mother Molly being cautious about not waking their father Jason, fearing it might anger him. Jack specifically talked about a cobblestone kept on the bedside table. He clarified that they had brought the stone inside due to rain, intending to decorate it later. Regarding their parents, both Jack and Sarah described incidents where they witnessed physical altercations initiated by their father against Molly. They recounted occasions where Jason physically assaulted Molly, including hitting and pushing her, and frequently snapping at her over minor issues. Subsequent to these revelations, Jack and Sarah were temporarily placed under the care of their biological relatives. Aunt Tracy Lynch, who had traveled from Ireland, stayed in a North Carolina hotel during the unfolding custody battle. By the time Jason Corbett's autopsy was completed, it revealed the grim details of his demise. The cause of death was a traumatic brain injury. Jason had suffered approximately 12 strikes to the head with both a baseball bat and a brick. These blows were concentrated on the same area, leading to his scalp being severely torn from his skull and his skull itself being fractured. Notably, the medical examiner concluded that at least one of these strikes was inflicted after Jason had already passed away. The toxicology report provided additional insights. It indicated that Jason's blood contained slightly higher than normal levels of alcohol. Additionally, traces of trazodone, an antidepressant medication commonly prescribed for insomnia, were also found in his system. Jason Corbett was laid to rest in his hometown Limerick, Ireland, alongside his first wife, Margaret. Their shared tombstone is adorned with a wedding photograph, serving as a poignant reminder of their lives and the bond they shared. 16 days after Jason Corbett's passing, His sister Tracy Lynch took his children Jack and Sarah to Ireland, separating them from their stepmother Molly. Molly was left in a state of shock and despair upon discovering that Jack and Sarah had been taken to another country. She attempted to reach out to them through phone calls and social media posts, hoping these messages would somehow reach the children. Meanwhile, Molly and Tom consistently maintained that their actions against Jason were in self-defense. However, the investigation into Jason's death was ongoing. Tracy Lynch believed in a different motive. She speculated that Molly was aware of Jason's plans to leave her and take their children with him. Tracy surmised that on the night of the incident, Jason had informed Molly of his decision. Out of fear and loneliness, Molly reacted violently. In Ireland, Jack and Sarah received psychological support and gradually adapted to their new environment. 9 months after their father's tragic demise, they admitted they had been coerced into lying about the alleged domestic violence at home. They revealed that Molly had manipulated them into fabricating stories about their father's behavior, threatening them with the loss of contact with her if they refused to comply. Contrary to their earlier statements, the children clarified that their father had never been abusive toward Molly. During the course of the inquiry, investigators discovered Molly Corbett's past connection with her ex-partner, Keith Megan. He provided several insightful details regarding her earlier life. Keith and Molly initially connected through a dating website, quickly falling for each other at their first meeting. They moved in together just 6 weeks later. Keith acknowledged Molly's independent spirit, jovial nature, and unique personality. However, she eventually disclosed her struggle with bipolar disorder to him. Keith wasn't overly worried about this revelation, since Molly was on medication and generally stable, except for occasional shifts in behavior when she missed her doses. She wasn't violent or prone to outbursts, but would insist on not letting Keith leave during disputes. Molly often spent extended periods in the bathtub, then sat on the cold floor weeping. Despite these challenges, they continued their lives together without plans for children. Molly informed Keith she was on contraceptives, but unexpectedly declared they were expecting a child. At this point, Keith, the family's sole earner, faced financial strain and felt unprepared for parenthood. His discovery of an unopened pack of contraceptives in Molly's wardrobe led him to realize her deceit. Yet Keith, being an honorable man, proposed to Molly, who accepted joyfully. Undeterred by her health issues, she maintained her regimen of antidepressants and other medications, sometimes taking up to 16 pills daily, which caused Keith concern for their unborn child's well-being. Molly once dreamt of losing the baby, and tragically, the following day, the hospital confirmed the fetus demise. This incident further strained their relationship. Molly plunged into profound mourning and was diagnosed with severe depression, as documented in her medical records. Her parents began supporting her more fervently and, simultaneously, developed a disdainful view of Keith, casting him as the antagonist. In early 2008, Molly informed her fiancé of her plan to go to Europe to find work as a nanny or house assistant. By March, she packed her belongings and left the apartment she had been renting with her fiancé. 10 days later, Molly called Keith to tell him she was in Ireland, had found a job, and everything was fine. From that point on, they never spoke or saw each other again. Keith Megan first heard from a North Carolina detective in October 2015 via email. Through this communication, he discovered the unfortunate events that had unfolded. It was revealed that Molly had kept her significant relationship engagement and subsequent departure to another country a secret from everyone. Keith admitted that upon viewing an interview featuring Tom and Molly, in which they portrayed the late Justin Corbett as malevolent and dreadful, he found their story unconvincing and moreover perceived their expressions as merely facades. In January 2016, half a year following Jason's demise, Tom and Molly were unexpectedly indicted for second-degree murder. By July 2017, 2 years since the incident, the father and daughter duo faced their trial together. They maintained their stance of having acted in self-defense in Jason's killing. During the trial, Tom Martin claimed his actions were what any true father would do: protect his daughter. He believed it was a life or death situation and did all he could to safeguard both Molly and himself. Tom confessed he was the one who struck Jason with a bat, ceasing only when he felt sure Jason no longer posed a threat. The prosecution contended in court that the severity of the blows indicated deep-seated animosity, not mere self-defense. An expert analyzing the bloodstains deduced that some strikes were dealt when Jason's head was 30 to 50 centimeters off the ground, strongly suggesting Tom continued to strike him even when he was down and no a threat. Blood stains on Molly's pajama bottom suggested she was close to Jason during these blows. A long, light-colored hair, possibly Molly's, was found in John's hand, but it wasn't tested. The autopsy revealed defensive wounds on John's left hand, but none on his right. This is significant because he might have used his right hand to grab Molly by the throat. During the trial, Lieutenant Frank Young, assigned to document injuries on Tom and Molly the night of the incident, took the stand. He recalled noticing self-inflicted marks on Molly's neck. Lieutenant Young repeatedly told her to stop and noted that except for dried blood on her cheek, forehead, and hair, she had no other injuries. Similarly, Tom had no injuries on the front of his shirt, but blood was found on his watch dial and under his fingernails. His glasses remained intact. Paramedic Mamanda Hackworth also testified. When she arrived at the scene and examined Jason's body, she found his torso already cold with patches of dried blood. This contradicted Molly's claim that they had immediately called 911 after Jason lost consciousness and collapsed. The trial further revealed that Jason Corbett had a life insurance policy, naming Molly as the beneficiary. It was also disclosed that Jason often sent money to Molly's parents during his lifetime. For instance, in 2011, he sent $50,000 to Tom, supposedly for wedding expenses. A neighbor came forward during the trial, recounting how he and Jason spent an evening together, drinking beer from about 3:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. The neighbor described Jason as very relaxed and noted Jason's calm interactions with his in-laws when they arrived at the Corbett residence. He witnessed Tom and his wife arriving with Jason welcoming them and helping carry heavy bags from their car into the house. Finally, a nurse testified about her observations of the couple before this incident occurred. The tragic event unfolded when it was reported that trazodone had been prescribed to Molly a few days before the incident on July 30th, 2015. Jason had visited the hospital 2 weeks prior to his passing, expressing concerns about frequent dizziness, tension, and unprovoked anger. After 9 days filled with witness accounts, debates, and distressing crime scene photographs, the jury reached a verdict in merely 3 hours. Molly Corbett and her father, Tom Martins, were convicted of second-degree murder and received sentences of 20 and 25 years in prison, respectively. Upon hearing the verdict, Molly turned to her mother with regret in her voice stating, "I'm so sorry, but I shouldn't have let him kill me." While it seemed justice had been served for the convicted individuals, the case was far from over. Just an hour after the jury delivered their verdict, a juror disclosed outside the courthouse that discussions about Jason Corbett's case occurred prior to the formal deliberation period. This was a significant breach of legal protocol. In light of this revelation, the defense swiftly submitted a request to overturn the conviction due to juror misconduct. However, this motion was dismissed by the trial court judge. A year later, the defense approached the appellate court highlighting several investigative errors. One issue raised concerned bloodstains on Tom Martin's shorts. The prosecution had suggested these stains belonged to Jason's blood, implying Tom stood over Jason during the assault, but they were never actually tested. The prosecutor argued it was impractical and unnecessary to test every single blood spot. The defense also underscored initial statements made by Jack and Sarah. They initially claimed their father was abusive towards them and expressed fear of him. The defense argued that the siblings' late attractions, were they to lying, were influenced by professionals, shoring them to change their testimony. On 4th, 2020, the North Carolina Court of Appeals determined Tom Martins and Molly Corbett should be granted a new trial. This decision was later upheld by the Supreme Court of North Carolina. Subsequently, both were released on a $200,000 bond. While awaiting the retrial, they were required to hand over their passports and were forbidden from making any contact with Jack and Sarah. Currently, Jason Corbett's case has been moved to Forsyth County, North Carolina for additional legal proceedings, marking a minor triumph for Tom and Molly. Jason's children, Jack and Sarah, are now residing with their biological aunt in Ireland. Sarah, aged 16, has authored a series of books aimed at helping others deal with the loss of parents. Tracy Lynch, Jason's sister, has also penned a book about her brother during these years of legal battles. She aims to share the kindness and decency of Jason Corbett with the world. A notable excerpt from Tracy's book reads, "On January 12, 2018, a little boy named Cody Bigsby was born to parents Dina Abdul Karim and Corey Bigsby in Hampton, Virginia. Cody had a bright personality and a warm smile that revealed his deep dimples. With his curly black hair and brown eyes, he loved Spider-Man and brought joy to those around him. His arrival made him the second of what would eventually become 4 children in the Bigsby family, including a set of twin boys born after him. Cody's parents separated in 2019, and by 2020, Dina faced serious health challenges. This led to an agreement where Corey would take custody of their children. However, Dina claimed Corey hesitated to take Cody, calling him a mama's boy. Despite this, Dina handed over the children to Corey on November 1, 2020, during a meeting halfway between Hampton and Washington, D.C., where she had relocated. Dina alleged that Corey refused to share his address, preventing her from visiting her children afterward. On January 31, 2022, reported 4-year-old Cody missing. He told police that he last saw Cody around 2 a.m. after putting him to bed. When he woke up, Cody was gone. Officers arrived at Corey's residence at the Buckrow Point townhomes and began investigating. Cody was described as being about 3 feet tall and last seen wearing a black bomber jacket, black sweatpants, and Spider-Man flip-flops. Authorities quickly issued a public alert, and the FBI joined the search effort alongside 50 volunteers. Police focused their search on areas near Corey's residence, including waterways and the nearby Hampton NASA steam plant. Questions circulated online as police sought tips from anyone familiar with Cody's family or living in the area. During a press conference, Hampton Police Chief Mark Talbot confirmed Cody's parents were persons of interest, stating that inconsistencies existed in Corey's account of the events. Despite this, no evidence suggested Cody had been abducted, which would have triggered an Amber Alert. Chief Talbot expressed hope, saying they would continue to search as though Cody was waiting to be found. Meanwhile, Corey's sister defended him, insisting he was a loving father who would never harm his children. She firmly stated, "I know my brother and I know it's not true." As the investigation progressed, troubling details emerged. On February 3rd, Corey was arrested on 7 counts of child neglect, stemming from incidents before Cody's disappearance. According to reports, Corey admitted to leaving his children alone on multiple occasions, including a December 2021 instance when he went to Norfolk to purchase a vehicle. On another occasion, just days before Cody's disappearance, Corey left his children unattended while running errands. Corey's attorney, Jeff Ambrose, emphasized that the neglect charges were unrelated to Cody's disappearance. He also criticized how Corey's requests for legal representation were handled, a claim Chief Talbot disputed, highlighting Corey's military background and his capability to understand his rights. Nearly a week after Cody Bigsby vanished on February 5, 2022, volunteers gathered once again to aid in the search. A bitterly cold Saturday morning saw community members scouring a wooded area near Cody's home. They trudged through thorny underbrush and muddy terrain, some equipped with machetes to clear the dense foliage. Others operated drones, while a few focused their efforts on nearby water bodies and an abandoned storage unit. The search was set to resume the following morning, ahead of a candlelit vigil planned for that Sunday evening. Despite their determination, no significant clues emerged. At the vigil, dozens of people gathered on the soccer fields near Cody's residence. They held candles, released balloons, sang, and prayed for the little boy's safe return. On February 8th, Corey Bigsby was denied bond, a decision his attorney vowed to appeal. Just days later, on February 12th, a blue jacket, thought to belong to Cody, was found in a field behind his apartment complex. Police and forensic units responded quickly, also noting tire tracks near the discovery site. Despite this, hope for Cody's return began to dwindle. The community, however, continued to express their love and concern for him. A Valentine's Day display appeared along a fence at a local soccer field, featuring balloons, flowers, and cards. Residents left heartfelt messages in a sparkling Valentine's box, hoping Cody might one day see their love for him. A Facebook group dedicated to Cody's case gained tens of thousands of members from across the globe, all eager for updates. Amidst the outpouring of support, Cody's mother, Dina, issued a heartfelt statement expressing gratitude for the community's efforts while explaining her reluctance to speak publicly due to ongoing legal proceedings. "I'm praying for the safe return of my baby boy Cody," she wrote, urging respect for her privacy during such a tragic time. Efforts to locate Cody continued with a non-profit search and rescue team, focusing on areas where Corey had previously lived in Norfolk, Virginia. Acting on tips from neighbors, the team combed through the location, but once again found no new leads. As February wore on, Hampton Police Chief Mark Talbot admitted to significant missteps in the initial investigation. He revealed that detectives interviewing Corey had failed to honor his request for legal counsel. Corey, who voluntarily came to the station after reporting his son missing, underwent a polygraph test late into the night. Around 4 a.m., tensions boiled over, leading to a heated exchange with a detective. During this interaction, Corey twice asked for a lawyer, but his request was ignored, and the interview continued for another 2 days. In light of these revelations, Chief Talbot launched a comprehensive audit of over 100 hours of recorded interactions between police and Corey. He acknowledged the mishandling of Corey's request for an attorney, but maintained that statements made prior to the request remained valid. The lead detective in the case was placed on administrative leave, though the charges against Corey were unaffected. By July, Corey faced 30 charges, including 15 counts of child neglect and multiple counts tied to allegations of abuse. Court documents outlined incidents where Corey had left his young children alone on several occasions, sometimes for hours, without adequate care or supervision. These charges carried a maximum potential sentence of 162 years in prison, though none were directly connected to Cody's disappearance. As the case against Corey unfolded, his extended family publicly defended him and criticized the police. They announced a $25,000 reward for information on Cody's whereabouts while alleging misconduct by law enforcement. In January 2023, a year after Cody went missing, his case remained unresolved. The memorial near his home, adorned with stuffed animals and handwritten signs, stood as a somber reminder of the community's enduring hope. Reflecting on the case, Chief Talbot shared that it had deeply affected him, saying, "Became intimately familiar with how Cody lived his life." Through the course of their investigation, authorities uncovered a heartbreaking picture of the challenges and neglect Cody Bigsby endured during his short life. Hampton Police Chief Mark Talbot reflected on the process, stating, "We've become intimately familiar with the trauma he experienced while he was living. The kind of deprivation he endured is deeply traumatic." While the community remained hopeful, Talbot acknowledged a grim reality, explaining, "Each day it becomes harder to believe Cody is alive. If he were, we'd see traces, photos, phone calls, something. Yet, there's no evidence of him being cared for or alive." Despite the growing uncertainty, the investigation pressed on. Volunteers continued their search with the same vigor as they had a year prior. Chief Talbot noted that their work included following a statement Corey made while incarcerated, leading investigators to search an area in Maryland near Washington. Investigators discovered that Cody and his 3 siblings rarely left their home, didn't attend school, and were without babysitters. The last confirmed interaction anyone had with Cody outside of his father was in late 2020, when an aunt spoke with him by phone during the holidays. In March 2023, Corey was transferred to Eastern State Hospital for mental health treatment after a court-ordered psychiatric evaluation yielded mixed opinions about his competency to stand trial. Corey's family attributed his mental decline to the stress of his incarceration and the conditions he faced in jail. They maintained their belief that Cody was alive and had been trafficked, with Corey's sister stating, "I believe in my heart Cody is alive. I think he's been trafficked, and one day he'll be returned to us. In June 2023, a grand jury indicted Corey Bigsby on charges of homicide and concealment of a body. The indictment alleged that Cody had died around June 18, 2021, 7 months before he was reported missing. Investigators did not immediately disclose the evidence supporting this timeline, which Corey's sister disputed, claiming she had last seen Cody alive in the fall of 2021 at a family gathering. Surprisingly, Corey was granted bond on June 21, 2023. His defense argued that without a body or concrete evidence of homicide, Corey was entitled to bond. The court imposed strict conditions, including house arrest with his adult daughter in Norfolk and a ban on contact with his younger children. Later in November 2023, a hearing was held to determine the admissibility of critical evidence. Confessional letters Corey allegedly wrote while in prison. In one letter, written with the assistance of a corrections officer, Corey described finding his son unresponsive, unsuccessfully performing CPR, and ultimately placing Cody's body in a trash bag and leaving it in his car for 3 days. He claimed to have later driven the body to a location in Maryland. A second letter, written by Corey himself after the first, provided a similar account, describing an accident where Cody supposedly fell down the stairs. Both letters expressed Corey's panic, prayers, and ultimate decision to dispose of Cody's body. On January 21, 2022, Corey Bigsby allegedly confessed to taking Cody to Garrett Morgan Boulevard in Maryland, where he initially placed the boy in a trash receptacle. Realizing his actions, Corey said he removed Cody and buried him beside a tree, securing his ankles and wrists with tape, and laying a cowboy rug beneath him. He claimed to have placed Beats headphones in Cody's ears and left some trash and a bike at the scene before eating nearby. These chilling details were revealed in court during his trial. In December 2022, Corey reportedly handed a corrections officer a note on Christmas Day, confessing that he buried Cody after finding him unresponsive. Another confession, written in a notebook found in Corey's cell, detailed a separate account where he allegedly struck Cody on June 18, 2021, before putting him in a bathtub, then a refrigerator, and eventually burying him. Corey's defense argued these statements were coerced due to the conditions he endured in jail and during police interrogations. However, the court ruled these confessions admissible for his trial, which began in March 2024. In February 2024, the community faced another heartbreak when a notice was placed on Cody's memorial fence, indicating it would be taken down. While some requested it remain longer, officials stated it would be removed following the 2-year anniversary of Cody's disappearance, as someone had been charged in his death. During the trial, Cody's mother took the stand. She recounted the last time she saw Cody in November 2020, when she handed him and his siblings over to Corey at a 7-Eleven halfway between Hampton and Washington, D.C. Dina testified that Corey never allowed her consistent communication with her children, ignoring her calls, emails, and messages. She described how Corey once emailed her in early 2021, accusing Cody of troubling behavior and stating, "He needs to come back to you because I don't want to severely hurt him." Dina was shown a photo of Cody taken in June 2021, just days before he was allegedly killed. Through tears, she said he looked unrecognizable, sad and frightened compared to the laughing, loving child she remembered. She also testified about an email she sent to Corey in January 2022, desperately asking, "Where are my kids? Are they alive?" Cody's older brother, now 7, provided a remote testimony wearing a light blue bow tie and suspenders. He recounted finding Cody unresponsive on a bed with his face red, dry, and bruised. When he asked his father about Cody, Corey reportedly dismissed his concerns. Through tears, the boy said, "I was thinking he was dead." His testimony placed Cody's death months before. Corey reported him missing in January 2022. Forensic evidence from Corey's phone further corroborated this timeline with photos of Corey and his other children at Busch Gardens in July 2021, weeks after Cody's alleged death. The most damning evidence came from Corey's written confessions. Corrections officers testified about the first note he dictated, detailing a burial site in Maryland that prompted an extensive search involving cadaver dogs and FBI agents. No remains were found, on Christmas Day 2022, handed another handwritten note to an officer, stating he attempted CPR on Cody before his death. On June 18, 2024, 3 years after Cody Bigsby's death, Corey Bigsby was sentenced to 45 years in prison for the second-degree homicide of his son and the concealment of a body. The maximum sentence allowed under Virginia law for these charges included 40 years for the homicide and 5 years for hiding Cody's remains. Still faces potential sentencing for the child neglect charges, which could total an additional 162 years. Despite the conviction, Corey continued to claim his innocence. In a post-trial interview from the Western Tidewater Regional Jail, Corey alleged that his confessions were fabricated under pressure and that he was denied fair treatment during both his incarceration and trial. "If I confessed to something, they should have found my son. But they didn't. I don't know where Cody is," he maintained. While Cody's body has yet to be found, the case has left a significant legacy. In January 2024, 2 years after Cody was reported missing, Virginia lawmakers introduced the Cody Alert. This new system aims to address gaps in missing child cases that don't meet the strict criteria for an Amber Alert. The Cody Alert allows law enforcement to issue alerts in any missing child case, whether or not abduction is suspected. The alert includes targeted notifications within a 10-mile radius and can be expanded as needed. The legislation, signed into law in May 2024, went into effect months ahead of schedule with the first Cody alerts issued in September 2024. Within the first month, 3 missing children in Virginia were safely recovered thanks to the new system. As Corey awaits additional trials for child neglect, Cody's memory lives on in the hearts of those who loved him and in the new alert system bearing his name. Though his body remains missing, Cody's legacy serves as a reminder of the importance of protecting vulnerable children and ensuring their voices are heard, even when they cannot speak for themselves. Erica Murray was born in 1983 in the United States, the third child of Kevin and Sharon Murray. The family lived in a rural home in southern Worcester County, Massachusetts, the same house where Kevin had spent his childhood. Kevin worked as an auto mechanic, handling repairs around the house, while Sharon was a homemaker with a passion for crafts. Known throughout the neighborhood for their cheerful and sociable nature, the Mauys often hosted barbecues, bringing families together. As a child, Erica was described by those who knew her as charming, happy, and beautiful. She was fortunate to have 2 older siblings who enjoyed playing games like baseball and hide and seek with her. During her teenage years in the late 1990s, Erica became increasingly conscious of her appearance, always ensuring her hair was perfectly styled and her nails immaculate. She was known as a diligent student and a responsible, goal-oriented young woman. Before graduating from high school, Erica took a job at a fast food chain, where she met Raymond Rivera, a man 7 years her senior. Little is known about Raymond's life, except that he had a sister named Christine and also worked at the same restaurant. The two quickly became friends, and their relationship soon turned romantic. At first, their connection seemed loving and understanding, but it eventually shifted into a dynamic of control and possessiveness. In 2001, at the age of 18, Erica discovered she was pregnant. The news plunged her into a personal crisis. She was mortified at the thought of attending her graduation visibly pregnant. However, a close friend convinced her not to miss the milestone event. On July 17, 2001, shortly after graduating, Erica gave birth to her first child, a daughter named Kayla. The young family, Erica, Raymond, and their baby, moved in with Erica's parents. By 2003, Erica was pregnant again, and the growing family outgrew the space in her parents' home. Between 2003 and 2004, they relocated to Raymond's sister Christine's house in Blackstone, Massachusetts, where Erica gave birth to her second child, Nicola. On the surface, everything seemed idyllic. Erica frequently shared moments of joy on social media, posting birthday celebrations and details about cooking meals for her kids. The children attended school and appeared well-adjusted, presenting the image of a happy, normal family. However, behind the facade, the household descended into chaos. Over time, their home became a cluttered, unsanitary mess, though no one in their community seemed to notice. The children continued to attend school, their appearance never raising suspicion. Erica maintained her online persona, sharing updates about her daily life, including washing dishes and preparing meals. Many followers admired her seemingly picture-perfect family life. Erica worked as a sales associate at a craft store in Whiteville, but her real life began unraveling. Friends and family noticed significant changes in her. Once elegant and confident, she now dressed in baggy clothes, appeared disheveled, and rarely left the house. Erica withdrew further into isolation, which her family attributed to embarrassment over her home's disorder. But the reality was far darker. The harrowing truth Erica Murray had been hiding came to light on an ordinary afternoon thanks to her neighbor, Betsy Brown. Betsy's 10-year-old son had gone over to play with Erica's son when, after some time, he called his mother in distress. The boy was desperately asking for help to calm a crying baby. Betsy, surprised to hear there was an infant in Erica's home, decided to check the situation herself. As soon as Betsy stepped inside the Murray household, she was struck by a nauseating stench. The scene before her was shocking. The house was in an extreme state of filth and decay. The windows were covered with blankets and sheets, casting the home in darkness. Trash was piled everywhere. Rats and insects scurried in plain sight, and maggots infested various corners. Clothes and human waste were scattered across the floor. Following her son's cries, Betsy made her way to a room where she expected to find a single baby, but the reality was far worse. Inside, she discovered not one, but two children. One was an infant around 5 months old, and the other was a toddler about 3 years old. This revelation was shocking to Betsy, who had always believed Erica only had 2 children, a 13-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son. The 2 young girls were lying in separate beds, crying and rocking themselves violently back and forth. Their frail bodies were covered in filth and maggots, and they appeared to have been abandoned. Betsy, horrified by what she had seen, immediately called emergency services. She described to the operator the horrifying state of the home. Human waste smeared on the walls, baby handprints in filth, dirty diapers scattered everywhere, and baby bottles teeming with maggots. The police in Blackstone, Massachusetts responded quickly to the call. What they encountered upon arrival was devastating. An unsanitary environment where children were living without proper hygiene, food, or medical care. This wasn't the first time authorities had been alerted to the conditions in Erica's home. In 2007, Massachusetts Child Protection Services had investigated the residence after receiving complaints about its squalid state. However, at that time, officials claimed they found no clear evidence of child neglect, and no further action was taken. This lack of intervention allowed the situation to deteriorate unchecked for years. This time, the authorities acted decisively. The Department of Children and Families took custody of all 4 children, Erica's 13-year-old daughter, 10-year-old son, and the 2 younger girls. The children were immediately subjected to medical evaluations which revealed alarming findings. The 3-year-old girl was so malnourished, she lacked the muscle strength to sit up without assistance. She was also highly sensitive to light. The 5-month-old infant had a flattened head, a condition caused by being left lying down for extended periods. Neither of the younger girls had birth records, and both were severely underweight, stark evidence of prolonged neglect. The older children's conditions were equally troubling. Both the 10-year-old boy and the 13-year-old girl were found to have severe ear infestations of maggots, and the buildup of earwax was so extreme that their eardrums were obscured. These findings painted a grim picture of years of extreme neglect and abandonment. When Erica was informed of her children's removal and the dire conditions they had been living in, her reaction shocked authorities. She showed little emotion, agreeing that the children should not remain in such an environment, but displaying no visible concern over their well-being. Instead, she seemed preoccupied with the disappearance of her pet cat, a response that left many questioning her mental state and capacity for empathy. Days after the initial intervention, police conducted a more thorough search of Erica's home, armed with a warrant. What they uncovered was even more disturbing. During this second inspection, investigators found human remains in 2 separate closets. The decomposed bodies of 3 infants were discovered, one wrapped in adult sweatpants with the umbilical cord and placenta still attached. The condition suggested that the baby had been left to die shortly after birth. These gruesome discoveries highlighted an unimaginable level of neglect and disregard for human life. The remains were taken to the medical examiner's office for analysis, but the advanced state of decomposition made it difficult to determine how long the infants had been deceased. Forensic experts speculated the deaths could have occurred weeks or even years before their discovery, deepening the tragedy. The forensic report revealed that one of the infants might have been born alive, though the medical examiner could not confirm this definitively due to the condition of the remains. The discovery of these horrifying details, combined with the possibility that at least one baby had survived birth, sent shockwaves through the community and triggered intense media scrutiny of Erica Murray. When questioned by the police about whether she had given birth to other children who did not survive, Erica initially denied it. However, upon being informed that infant remains had been found in her home, she admitted to one birth, claiming the baby was stillborn. In a recorded interview, Erica stated that she panicked after discovering the baby wasn't breathing and placed the body in a closet. Hours later, in a second interrogation, detectives informed her that 2 more sets of remains had been found. Initially, she maintained that these babies had also been stillborn, but under pressure, she confessed that one of them, a baby girl, had lived for about a week before passing away. Erica explained that she had found the baby unresponsive and blue. When asked why she didn't call for emergency help or attempt to revive the child, she replied that she had been paralyzed by fear. Erica revealed that she had delivered these babies in secret, using the bathtub while her family slept. She admitted feeling trapped and unable to escape her situation. She feared that Raymond, her partner, would leave her if he discovered the pregnancies and births, leading her to keep each one a secret. This fear underscored her inability to seek help or face the reality of her actions. DNA analysis confirmed that all 7 children were Erica and Raymond's. Both were arrested. Raymond, visibly distraught, claimed he had no idea that the 2 young girls were his daughters or that 3 infants had died and been hidden in the house. However, police struggled to reconcile his claims of ignorance. They found it nearly impossible to believe that Raymond, who shared a bedroom with Erica, could have been unaware of her pregnancies. Furthermore, they questioned how he could not have noticed the presence of the 2 young girls in their home until Erica supposedly revealed she was caring for them. Despite these suspicions, authorities lacked sufficient evidence to prove Raymond's full awareness of the situation. Initially, he was charged only with drug-related offenses after investigators found a marijuana-growing operation in the basement. Erica faced a slew of charges, including second-degree murder, concealing a death, assault and battery on a child causing significant injury, reckless endangerment of a child, and 2 counts of animal cruelty related to a dog and a cat removed from the property. As the grim details of the House of Horrors, as it came to be known, emerged, Erica's neighbors began sharing their own observations. One neighbor recalled a foul odor emanating from the house, but dismissed it at the time. Another regretted not reporting seeing a dog tied up with a very short leash in the yard. A postal worker mentioned that the house always appeared unkempt and that the children often ate breakfast in the garage. A former acquaintance from Erica's childhood expressed disbelief, saying she had known Erica to regularly visit her mother with her 2 older children, but had never seen any other children. At Erica's workplace, where she sold handmade crafts and candles, colleagues reported that she had quit just 2 weeks before the chilling discoveries were made. Meanwhile, one of Raymond's co-workers revealed that Raymond had confided about hygiene and financial problems at home. The co-worker also noted that Raymond often retreated to the basement to cultivate and use marijuana. At work, Raymond maintained a clean appearance, wearing dry, clean clothes and keeping a tidy desk adorned with photos of Erica and their 2 older children. The co-worker remarked that Raymond had once said he couldn't leave Erica despite their problems because he loved her and didn't want to hurt her. The Murray home was condemned and declared uninhabitable, overrun with flies, rats, feces, and piles of used diapers reaching nearly 3 feet high. Hazardous materials teams worked tirelessly to decontaminate the property while searching for additional remains, fearing further discoveries. The cleanup process, which included removing carpets, tearing down contaminated walls, and demolishing shelves, cost over $25,000, a bill that fell to Raymond's sister, who owned the house. Once investigators confirmed no additional remains were hidden, the property was demolished. The case left a lasting scar on the community, raising questions about how such horrific conditions could have persisted unnoticed for so long. In the days following the shocking discoveries, the Murray family's friends, relatives, and neighbors gathered for vigils outside the now demolished house. They left stuffed animals, balloons, and flowers as a tribute to the children. The community remained deeply shaken by the events, even as Erica Murray, 31 at the time, faced her first court hearing in December 2014. Erica pleaded not guilty to all charges. Although initially held without bail, the court set a $1 million bail during the trial, a relatively lenient decision given the gravity of the case. It wasn't until June 2019, 5 years later, that Erica's trial began. Throughout the proceedings, Erica showed little emotion except when photographs of the infants' remains were displayed in court. Her defense team argued that the 3 deceased infants might have been stillborn, suggesting their deaths were not a result of Erica's negligence. The prosecution, however, maintained that Erica had abandoned and neglected her 5 youngest children, ultimately causing the deaths of 3 of them. Prosecutors presented Erica as a neglectful mother who forced her children to live in squalor among piles of trash, dead animals, dirty diapers, and other filth. They argued that at least one of the infants had been born alive and later died because Erica failed to seek medical attention. The court heard that after moving into the Blackstone home, Erica secretly gave birth to 5 more children, concealing each pregnancy under baggy clothing. Witness testimonies painted a harrowing picture of the conditions in the Murray home. Betsy Brown, the neighbor who discovered the horrors, took the stand to recount the filthy, chaotic environment she encountered. She described baby handprints smeared on walls, human waste, diapers filled with maggots, and the overwhelming stench of decay. Recordings of Erica's police interrogations were played in court. In the footage, she admitted that one of the infants had been born alive but died shortly after. She claimed she panicked and failed to call for help. Her defense attorneys argued that Erica's mental health issues impaired her ability to comprehend the severity of her actions. Forensic psychologists testified that Erica suffered from a personality disorder and had been emotionally abused by her partner Raymond. They asserted that she genuinely believed she was doing her best as a mother despite the appalling conditions in which her children lived. The defense highlighted Raymond's controlling behavior, noting that he had adamantly opposed having more children for financial reasons, but took no measures to prevent pregnancies, leaving the responsibility entirely on Erica. They suggested that her untreated postpartum depression led her to hide her pregnancies and keep the infant secret, fearing Raymond's reaction if he found out. Prosecutors rejected the argument that Erica acted out of fear or mental illness. They accused her of living a life of secrecy and deception that resulted in the deaths of her children. They contended that Erica knew exactly what she was doing and had ample opportunities to seek help, but chose not to. The judge ultimately determined there was insufficient evidence to prove that some of the infants had been born alive. She noted that while the death of one of the infants was senseless and tragic, the prosecution failed to demonstrate that Erica had directly caused it. As a result, Erica was acquitted of second-degree murder and 2 counts of reckless endangerment of her older children, aged 13 and 10. However, she was found guilty on charges of animal cruelty and assault and battery related to the severe neglect of her 3-year-old and 5-month-old daughters. The judge acknowledged the extraordinary nature of the case, remarking that the victims, Erica's own children, were the most vulnerable and defenseless. Despite the horrifying discoveries, the court could not impose the severe punishment many had hoped for given the mitigating factors of Erica's mental health. In July 2019, Erica Murray, then 36 years old, was sentenced to 8 years in prison. By the time she received her sentence, she had already served nearly 5 years in custody, meaning she would need to serve an additional 2 to 3 years before being eligible for parole. Her parole conditions, which extended for 5 years, included mandatory mental health treatment and a prohibition on contact with children under 10 years old. 3 months later, on October 29, 2019, Raymond Rivera, 42, reached a plea agreement with prosecutors. He pleaded guilty to multiple charges, including assault and battery on a child causing substantial injury, 2 counts of reckless endangerment of a child, 2 counts of animal cruelty, and 1 count of possession with intent to distribute a Class D substance. Raymond's attorney had previously filed a motion in August 2016 to dismiss the charges, arguing that he never had custody of the 2 neglected children found in the home. However, prosecutors countered, asserting that he was the father and bore responsibility for their welfare. The judge sentenced Raymond to 3.5 years for the assault charge, crediting him for the time he had already served. For reckless endangerment, he received a 4-year sentence in a correctional facility to run concurrently with his prior sentence, with an additional 136 days credited. Raymond was also sentenced to 3 years of probation for the remaining charges. His probation conditions included no unsupervised contact with children under 10, compliance with all service plans from the Department of Children and Families, and adherence to probate court orders. He was also required to undergo substance abuse evaluation and treatment, remain drug-free with random testing, and receive mental health treatment. Raymond's lawyer commented that his client had accepted more responsibility than he should have, given his position at the time. But Raymond wanted to resolve the case and move forward. The most recent information indicated that the couple's 2 oldest children, who were 13 and 10 at the time of the events, had been placed under the guardianship of Raymond's family. Erica Murray had been released from prison by the conclusion of this investigation. As for the 2 young, malnourished daughters found alive in squalid conditions, reports suggested they initially moved through several foster homes. The 3-year-old, referred to by authorities as Liza, made significant progress in her recovery. Conflicting reports about their current whereabouts suggest that while some sources claim the girls remain in foster care, others indicate they are living with their paternal grandparents and older siblings. Victoria Martins was born on August 23, 2006 in Albuquerque, New Mexico. She was the daughter of Michelle Martins, a single mother who claimed that Victoria's father abandoned them before she was even born, refusing to meet his child at the hospital. When Victoria was just 3 months old, Michelle began a relationship with Jason Uring. He was committed to building a stable family life, and 2 years later, they welcomed a son, Matthew. Jason later shared that he cared deeply for both his biological son and Victoria, who he described as a bright, loving child. However, following his separation from Michelle, staying connected with the children proved challenging. Victoria was remembered as a radiant little girl with a kind heart, a wide smile, brown hair, and light eyes. Her grandparents, John and Pat Martins, adored her and often called her their little queen. They cherished outdoor activities with her, frequently visiting a local park in Albuquerque where she loved to ride her bike, skate, or play. Victoria also had a passion for swimming and gymnastics, and her joyful personality made her well-loved among her peers. Her grandfather John often said she could light up a room with her laughter, paired with a charming sense of humor. Although details about her family life were limited, there were signs that things began to unravel after Michelle and Jason parted ways. Michelle's personal life took a chaotic turn as she pursued numerous relationships, bringing various partners into her home. This raised concerns for Jason, who worried about the children's safety. Though Michelle dismissed his concerns, asserting that he had no right to interfere in her life. In July 2016, Michelle met Fabian Gonzalez through an online dating platform. Their relationship progressed quickly, and Fabian moved into Michelle's home with her 2 children. Shortly after, Michelle introduced another individual into their lives, Jessica Kelly, Fabian's cousin, who was recently released from prison. Fabian insisted Jessica had nowhere else to go and convinced Michelle to let her stay temporarily. By early August 2016, Victoria and Matthew found themselves living with 2 strangers, one of whom had a criminal record. Victoria's once stable home life had become deeply troubled. Friends and relatives noted that Michelle had once been a responsible mother. but her judgment seemed to falter as her involvement with Fabian and Jessica deepened. Victoria celebrated her 10th birthday on August 23, 2016, unaware of the tragedy that would unfold in the early hours of the next day. On the night of August 24th, chaos erupted in their Albuquerque neighborhood. Michelle and Fabian frantically banged on a neighbor's door, visibly injured and bleeding, claiming they had been attacked with a metal bar by Jessica Kelly. They added that Victoria had also been assaulted. Alarmed, the neighbor called 911, prompting a swift response from authorities. When police arrived and entered Michelle's home, they discovered a horrifying scene. The smell of smoke led them to a closed bathroom door, and what they found inside was beyond comprehension. Victoria's lifeless body had been dismembered, wrapped in fabric and set on fire. Even seasoned officers were unprepared for such a gruesome sight. Michelle, Fabian, and Jessica were immediately taken into custody. While Michelle's statements provided a basis for the investigation, her account was riddled with contradictions and inconsistencies. As detectives pieced together the events, one fact remained undeniable. Each of the three detainees had played a role in the horrific events that led to Victoria's death. Michelle's ever-changing stories added layers of complexity to an already devastating case, leaving authorities to sift through a web of lies and half-truths to uncover the truth. Initially, Michelle claimed that she and Fabian Gonzalez were attacked by Jessica Kelly, who allegedly stormed into their bedroom shouting and repeatedly asking if they believed in God. According to Michelle, it was only when she tried to flee the house to get help that she heard Jessica scream that Victoria was no longer alive. However, her story began to shift as the hours passed. In a new version, Michelle stated that she and Fabian had left the house that night, leaving Victoria alone with Jessica, since Matthew was not home. When they returned, Michelle claimed to have found Victoria dead after accidentally ingesting methamphetamine that Jessica had left out on a table. According to this account, Fabian and Jessica then threatened to kill her if she tried to escape or report what had happened before deciding to dispose of Victoria's body. Given the glaring inconsistencies between her statements, detectives applied additional pressure, telling Michelle that Fabian was confessing everything in another interrogation room, a tactic designed to elicit a reaction. While Fabian was being questioned, he had not actually admitted to anything yet. Under mounting scrutiny, Michelle changed her story again, revealing a disturbing history of abuse toward her children. Over the course of 8 grueling hours of interrogation, she confessed that, in the months leading up to Victoria's death, she had brought men into her home to harm her children. She admitted that she derived a twisted satisfaction from witnessing these acts. According to Michelle, this pattern of abuse began with an ex-partner she discovered attempting to assault Victoria. Although she ended the relationship, she continued arranging encounters with other men, often drugging the children to keep them subdued during the assaults. She stated that she met these men through a dating platform, using coded language to identify individuals with similar interests. This was also how she had met Fabian. Jessica's arrival in the household only escalated the violence. Initially, Michelle denied knowing about Jessica's role in the abuse, but she eventually admitted that both Fabian and Jessica had assaulted Victoria on multiple occasions in the days leading up to her death. Michelle also confessed that she had witnessed both Fabian and Jessica giving methamphetamine to Victoria on the night of her death as she begged them to stop. She further admitted to watching Jessica attack Victoria with a knife, but did not intervene. Chillingly, Michelle revealed that she and Fabian had sex approximately 20 minutes after Victoria's death. They then began cleaning up the scene before running to a neighbor's house to seek help, with Fabian closely following her. These revelations painted a picture of incomprehensible cruelty and left investigators grappling with the sheer horror of the events. Fabian, questioned twice by police, provided fragmented and contradictory accounts of what had occurred. In his first interview, he claimed that Jessica had only planned to stay one more night with them. He admitted that family members had warned him about Jessica, advising him not to let her stay in the apartment, especially with 2 young children living there. Despite being aware of the risks, Fabian said the decision had already been made, and they felt they couldn't turn back. As the interrogation progressed, detectives noticed inconsistencies in Fabian's behavior and statements, which raised further suspicion. For example, Fabian described how he and Michelle fled the apartment after being attacked, without making any effort to rescue Victoria or return for her, despite claiming to be concerned for her safety. Instead of asking about Victoria's well-being, Fabian seemed preoccupied with whether the police had spoken to Michelle. In his second interview, Fabian gave a different and less detailed account of the events, which not only contradicted his earlier statements, but also failed to align with Michelle's evolving narrative. After continued questioning, Fabian eventually admitted to witnessing Jessica attack Victoria with a knife, while Michelle allegedly pleaded with them to stop. Fabian eventually admitted, seemingly with remorse, that he should have intervened to protect Victoria. However, he justified his earlier lies as a reaction born out of fear. He also claimed that the injury to his eye was caused during his alleged fight with Jessica. Later, this was proven false. The injury had resulted from an unrelated incident, further undermining his credibility. Investigators noted that Fabian's ever-changing statements and omissions hindered their ability to reconstruct the events, pointing to an attempt to manipulate and evade responsibility. Jessica Kelly's testimony, on the other hand, shocked investigators due to its stark contrast with the accounts of Fabian and Michelle. She claimed that while she and Victoria were in the apartment, under the influence of drugs, an unknown man with a Mexican accent broke in. According to Jessica, this man was responsible for Victoria's death before fleeing the scene, but not before threatening her life if she didn't dispose of the body. Some media outlets speculated that the man had warned her to handle the body or face severe consequences. Other reports suggested that he might have been someone Fabian had met in prison and who had come to settle a score. Jessica claimed that Fabian and Michelle returned to the apartment after the incident, and it was then that she and Fabian began cleaning up and disposing of the remains. However, this account introduced a new, unidentified suspect whose existence could not be corroborated. Efforts to verify Jessica's story revealed that no neighbors reported seeing a stranger that day. Moreover, evidence from the crime scene did not support the presence of this mysterious man. Jessica's credibility deteriorated further when neighbors reported seeing her carrying Victoria down the stairs and hearing screams from the apartment at around 3 a.m., coinciding with the suspected time of the incident. As the investigation continued, authorities uncovered disturbing details about the dynamics within the household. Among the evidence seized was a video camera, which investigators suspected might have been used to record abusive encounters involving Victoria and Matthew. Additionally, forensic evidence pointed to the active involvement of all three adults, Michelle, Fabian, and Jessica, in cleaning the crime scene and attempting to conceal the evidence. Fingerprints and other physical traces tied all three to the efforts to cover up the crime. With mounting evidence against them, Michelle, Fabian, and Jessica were formally arrested. Each faced a $1 million cash-only bail. Michelle was charged with child abuse resulting in death, while Fabian and Jessica faced not only the same charge, but also additional allegations of sexual abuse and murder. At their preliminary hearing on September 16, 2016, all three pleaded not guilty to the charges. The judge ordered them to have no contact with one another, ensuring that no collusion or interference could take place as the case moved through the courts. Detectives continued their efforts to piece together the tragic chain of events leading to Victoria's death. Evidence was closely guarded to protect the integrity of the investigation and the judicial process. In November 2016, an autopsy report was revealed during another preliminary hearing, sending shockwaves through the community. The report confirmed that Victoria's cause of death was asphyxiation caused by pressure applied to her neck. Additionally, she had suffered sexual assault and multiple stab wounds. Toxicology tests, however, showed no presence of illegal substances in her system, directly contradicting Michelle's earlier claims that Victoria had been forced to consume drugs that night. DNA analysis of samples taken from Victoria's body, clothing, a trash bag, sheets, and a knife yielded surprising results. While male DNA was detected, it was insufficient to identify a specific suspect. The testing did confirm that Fabian's DNA was absent, which led investigators to believe that the thorough cleaning carried out by the suspects had effectively destroyed critical evidence. This lack of conclusive forensic results caused significant delays in the case. In January 2017, a new prosecutor took over Victoria's case, expressing concerns about the mishandling of the initial investigation and subsequent legal proceedings. Determined to ensure no stone was left unturned, the prosecutor assembled a new team of investigators to re-examine the case. This renewed effort aimed to uncover overlooked evidence and finally bring clarity to the events that led to the heartbreaking death of Victoria Martins. In the months following the tragedy, investigators conducted hundreds of interviews, meticulously piecing together every detail in an effort to understand how events unfolded and what could have been done to prevent them. By May, prosecutors petitioned the court to hold separate criminal trials for the 3 defendants to ensure fairness in each case. The motion was granted, with Michelle's trial scheduled first, followed by Fabian's and then Jessica's. However, significant delays arose due to various complications, while police work continued to uncover critical evidence. A thorough review of earlier procedures revealed evidence that contradicted the narratives provided by all 3 defendants. Phone records showed inconsistencies in their claims about their activities on the night of Victoria's death. Judicial documents revealed that the trio had used their phones before and after the incident, communicating with each other and with other individuals. GPS analysis further demonstrated that neither Fabian nor Michelle was in the apartment at the estimated time of the crime, casting further doubt on their statements. Authorities reconstructed the timeline of events leading up to Victoria's death, analyzing movements between the afternoon of her 10th birthday and the fatal early morning hours. Victoria arrived home by bus around 4 p.m., at which time Fabian and Michelle were not at the residence. The couple returned briefly and left again multiple times throughout the evening. Their final return occurred shortly before their confrontation with Jessica. Detectives concluded that at least one of their outings was to purchase drugs, explaining why Victoria had been left alone with Jessica. This new information prompted investigators to send DNA samples to an advanced laboratory in Florida for a more precise analysis. The results led to some charges against Michelle and Fabian being dropped, as evidence confirmed they were not in the apartment at the time of Victoria's death. However, the most shocking discovery from the Florida lab validated one of Jessica's most controversial claims: the presence of an unidentified man. This revelation opened new investigative avenues and ran parallel to the ongoing court proceedings. Jessica's trial was the first to conclude. In September 2018, a judge rejected a proposed plea deal. By January 2019, Jessica was cleared of sexual abuse charges due to a lack of forensic evidence. However, fingerprints found at the crime scene tied her to key actions, including handling items used in the aftermath of Victoria's death. Jessica admitted to cleaning up and trying to flee the scene, attributing her actions to guilt and paranoia fueled by drug use. She even described waking Fabian in the middle of the night to read Bible passages to her in an attempt to calm her hallucinations. In a surprising turn, Jessica accepted a plea agreement in which she admitted to reckless child abuse resulting in death. In exchange, other charges were dropped and she agreed to testify against Fabian and the unidentified man if he were ever brought to justice. In April 2022, Jessica was sentenced to 50 years in prison with 6 years suspended, leaving her to serve 44 years behind bars. Upon release, she will face 5 years of probation. Fabian's trial faced repeated delays and an unusual development. In November 2019, he was released on probation. The court determined there was insufficient evidence to prove he posed a societal danger. His first hearing took place in July 2022. During the trial, Jessica testified against him as part of her plea deal, recounting the entry of the unidentified man into the apartment and Fabian's subsequent role in cleaning and dismembering Victoria's body. She revealed that, in her drug-induced panic, she had even considered killing both Fabian and Michelle before burning down the apartment. The prosecution focused on proving Fabian's role in tampering with evidence. A forensic scientist was called to testify, presenting findings from over 80 pieces of evidence. Although Fabian's fingerprints were only found on a mop, suggesting his involvement in cleaning the scene, prosecutors argued he bore responsibility for Victoria's death. Jessica's testimony and the physical evidence painted a picture of Fabian's participation in the aftermath, though questions remained about his precise role in the crime itself. As a result, prosecutors requested that the charge of child abuse be classified as a violent felony, which would require Fabian Gonzalez to serve at least 85% of his sentence before becoming eligible for parole. The defense argued against this, claiming that Fabian should not be held responsible for the crime. They emphasized that the initial accusations were based on Michel's false confession and pointed out that the true perpetrator remained at large. In late 2022, Fabian Gonzalez was sentenced to 37.5 years in prison. However, under the terms of his sentencing, he could apply for parole after serving 50% of his sentence. During the hearing, John Martins, Victoria's grandfather, delivered a victim impact statement, pleading with the judge to impose the full weight of the law. He expressed his anguish over losing the chance to see Victoria grow up, graduate, or walk down the aisle, moments he and his family had dreamed of for years. Michelle Martins was the last of the 3 defendants to be sentenced, and her case presented unique challenges. Due to her numerous conflicting accounts and the lack of evidence supporting key parts of her statements, including claims of sexual encounters with unnamed individuals, authorities deemed it necessary to conduct a psychological evaluation. The results revealed that Michelle exhibited personality traits that made her highly susceptible to providing false confessions. A specialist who interviewed her testified in court describing Michelle as one of the most easily manipulated individuals he had ever encountered. This led prosecutors to propose a plea agreement, which Michelle accepted in June 2018. She admitted her responsibility for leaving Victoria in Jessica's care, an action that ultimately resulted in her daughter's death. Though her admission of guilt occurred in 2018, her sentencing was delayed by 4 years. Finally, in November 2022, was sentenced to 12 years in prison, with 6 years credited for time already served. Victoria Martin's case is a heartbreaking reminder of the vulnerabilities children face in unsafe environments. Throughout the lengthy legal process, the community came together to honor Victoria's memory and push for meaningful change. They also rallied to support the law enforcement officers who had witnessed the harrowing crime scene, ensuring they receive recognition for their difficult work. On August 7, 2009, a married couple was walking under a bridge near Lakeside Road in Greenville, South Carolina, looking for wildlife. They then stumbled upon a nude body of a woman in a creek. The woman was quickly identified as 24-year-old Allison Sutherland Crane, who was a Greenville native. An autopsy revealed that she had multiple blunt force trauma injuries. There was no DNA belonging to a possible suspect on her or at the crime scene. There was also no witnesses. Investigators located cell phone records that helped them make a connection between Allison and 38-year-old Jeffrey Phillips. Phillips was a frequent cab driver in the area and had driven Allison around before. Investigators were able to uncover that Phillips owed Allison money. Recently, investigators were able to locate more cell phone records where Phillips revealed he was the one that took Allison's life. Investigators also found that Phillips is currently incarcerated in Sullivan County Jail in Tennessee. He is awaiting trial for taking the life of his roommate back in 2017. His roommate was 28-year-old Timothy Franz. The two lived in a mobile home park in Tennessee. Phillips got angry with Timothy because Timothy sold methamphetamines to Phillips' girlfriend. Phillips tied Timothy's legs with a towel and then dragged him from the trailer. He then used a rock, garden hoe, and a sink pedestal to beat Timothy. The neighbors called the police. When they arrived at the crime scene, they found Timothy's body and Phillips exiting the trailer wearing only a bath towel. They let Phillips get dressed. When he reappeared, officers noted that there was blood on his shoes. When interviewed, Phillips kept changing his story. In one of the versions, he stated that he lured Timothy outside claiming he needed help assembling a hammock. Phillips allegedly said that he remembered punching Timothy in the face before he blacked out due to his anger and couldn't remember what happened. Back to Allison's case. Investigators have not stated specifically what was said in the cell phone records that led them being convinced Phillips is responsible for what happened to her. Phillips is now awaiting trial for both crimes. Greenville County Sheriff Hobart Lewis said, "This is a prime example of the vision we had for the unit coming to life, to bring resolve and justice for the family and friends who tragically lost their loved ones. It is hard enough to lose someone you love, but having unanswered questions in their case go cold elevates the level of difficulty. I'm so blessed to work alongside these dedicated investigators who work tirelessly in their pursuit of justice. We have so much more work to do, but this is another tremendous step in our agency's pursuit of unwavering commitment to solve cold cases. Lewis also said there were still about 90 cold cases in their county dating back to 1967 that they are still trying to solve. Allison's mother, Tammy Morrison, had this to say: "Allison was loved by so many people. She was loved by her daughters, her sister, me, other family members, her uncle Stevie, and a lot of people that's not here that's passed on since this." Allison's sister, Ashley Simmons, also spoke to the media. "We always said from day one that we would never give up on finding who took my sister away, and we never did." 39-year-old Sherry Huss lived in Desert Hot Springs, 1994. She had moved there after divorcing her husband Jeff Huss, who lived in Cathedral City, California. They shared custody of their children, aged 14, 13, and 8. By April 1994, Sherry was settling into her new life. It had been 2 months since she divorced Jeff. She found an apartment in the 12,900 block of Parma Drive. On the evening of April 23, 1994, Sherry sent a message to her parents. She told them that someone had been taking photos of her. She also received strange phone calls when the other person would hang up without saying anything. Sherry's parents decided to leave their San Fernando Valley home to check on their daughter. They got an ominous feeling when they arrived there. Sherry's porch light was on and her dog was outside. Her front door was unlocked and her car was parked on the street instead of the driveway. When the couple went inside, they found the unimaginable. Their daughter's partially clothed body was lying lifeless on the floor. She had multiple stab wounds and was also bitten by the person that took her life. Investigators were able to collect saliva from the culprit. It was evident that Sherry fought hard for her life and there was blood belonging to the suspect at the crime scene too. A DNA profile was created of the person who committed this crime and it was entered into the combined DNA index system. No matches could be made, unfortunately. Investigators tried to find the person who took the photos of Sherry and the person responsible for the strange telephone calls, but wasn't able to. Over the years, Sherry's parents worked hard to keep her case in the public eye, including the offer of a $50,000 reward. Every few years, investigators entered the DNA profile into the combined DNA index system, but there was never a match. Thus, the case went cold. Recently, with the advent of genetic genealogy, things quickly changed. In February of 2022, the Riverside Regional Code Case team was able to use the technology to identify a man as a potential person of interest. That man is 48-year-old Sharon Eugene Gadlin, who lives in Gardena, California. Back in 1994, when the crime took place, he was just 20 years old and lived in Thousand Palms, California, which was 12 miles away from Sherry's apartment. On February 14, 2022, cold case investigators obtained a saliva sample from Gadlin. 4 days later, on February 18th, investigators received confirmation from the State Department of Justice Lab that there was a DNA match of the saliva to the DNA profile of the person suspected of taking Sherry's life. He was arrested on March 4, 2022, when officers pulled his vehicle over at an intersection in Gardena, California. Gadlin had previous run-ins with the police, including a 1999 DUI arrest in San Bernardino County. He was also convicted that year of entering property without consent and public intoxication. It is not known yet if Gadlin and Sherry knew each other and why he did what he did. Riverside County District Attorney Mike Hestron said in a statement that he was hopeful the arrest meant Huss and her family would get the justice they deserve and had waited so long for. 27-year-old Cynthia Rogers lived in Prince George's County in 1989. She was a biologist and was working on research on Parkinson's disease at the National Institutes of Health. On January 22, 1989, Cynthia left her house to go to the market and purchase items for soup. Later, when Cynthia's family members tried to contact her and failed to reach her, they called the police to report her missing. 5 days after she was last seen, Cynthia's body was found on a dirt path littered with trash in the Forestville, Maryland area. Police knew that locals frequently used the path as a shortcut to the store. Cynthia had multiple blunt force injuries to her upper body and head. She had been strangled. After the autopsy was done, it was determined that she had been assaulted as well. The DNA belonging to the man who committed this crime was taken from her body and stored so it could be used later when DNA was more advanced. Detective Bernie Nelson started working on the case. The DNA collected from the crime scene was then used to rule out several suspects. At the time, however, it wasn't a strong enough sample to run through the federal database. The profile that the FBI was able to develop from the sample wasn't strong enough to meet the standards to enter into the database, said Nelson. But it is something we can work with if given the name of someone who we can approach and obtain their DNA and compare it directly to the sample. More recently, with DNA technology that's even more advanced, investigators could enter the DNA sample from the suspect into the FBI database. It matched to James Clinton Cole. Cole had several charges filed against him. This includes a misdemeanor assault in 1984 and a charge of destruction of property just days before Cynthia's disappearance. When interviewed, Cole denied ever knowing or meeting Cynthia 33 years ago. It has not yet been indicated when Cole is scheduled to appear before a judge in the case. He is currently incarcerated at the Western Correctional Institution in Cumberland, Maryland for an unrelated crime. Cole is 64 years old and would have been 32 at the time the crime was committed. It is not believed that he and Cynthia knew each other. Cynthia's brother, Philip Rogers, had this to say, "But we have some relief." Cynthia's mother, Rosia Rogers, said, "This makes us feel better. My heart is feeling lighter." 18-year-old Anita Knudsen lived in Minot, North Dakota in 2007. She was described as a tenacious, kind, and compassionate young woman. She had just completed her first year at Minot State University, where she was studying elementary education. She was working 2 jobs to pay for school and was living in an off-campus apartment with her roommate, Nicole Rice. Anita's mother, Sharon Knudsen, last spoke to Anita on Friday, June 1st, 2007. The two were in touch daily. When Anita didn't answer her phone for several days, Sharon asked her husband Gordon to drive from their home in Butte, North Dakota, to Anita's apartment. Gordon attempted to enter the apartment, but it was locked. He then found the landlady and the maintenance worker and asked for help. The maintenance man had recalled seeing a window screen removed and sliced out of Anita's apartment. Gordon went to look for the screen and realized it was from Anita's bedroom window. He looked inside and saw his daughter on her bed. He touched her through the window to wake her up, but when he felt how cold her skin was, he knew she was not alive anymore. Gordon then called 911 to report what he had just seen. Officers arrived at 5:12 p.m. They removed a large housecoat that was on top of her body. It was clear to them that she had been stabbed numerous times. Investigators found a small pocket knife with dried blood on the edge of Anita's bed. Her laptop, cell phone, purse, and digital camera were all in her bedroom. This indicated that robbery was not the motive for the crime. There were no signs that anyone had entered through Anita's bedroom window, where the screen had been taken out. Investigators also determined that the screen was cut after the crime was committed. Sergeant David Goodman from the Minot Police Department said, "I believe the purpose would be to mislead law enforcement, to try and show that this is possibly an entry point." Police questioned Anita's friends, neighbors, and construction workers who were on a job nearby. They also found traces of DNA on the pocket knife and took samples from the people they interviewed. Police then spoke to Anita's roommate Nicole Rice. Rice said that she was with her family all weekend. Investigators suspected that something was off with Rice's story. Statements given by Rice and her parents were allegedly inconsistent and contradictory. Several of Anita's friends told police that Anita and Rice often fought. They described Rice as hot-tempered and reactionary. Anita's mother Sharon agreed and said Anita was scared of her. She added that Rice allegedly sent Anita threatening messages. Anita planned to move out. Minot Police Chief John Klung said that Rice is a suspect. He received tips about Rice and they were following all leads, but they did not have enough evidence to arrest her. Thus, the case went cold for many years. This year, in 2022, the Minot Police Department began re-interviewing suspects and witnesses. They also partnered with a true crime show called Cold Justice. The program provides additional support and expertise for investigators to help solve the case. During the renewed effort, investigators learned that Rice was dating a man for a few months in 2008 and 2009. According to the man, Rice got belligerently drunk one evening. Rice then told the man that she took Anita's life. The man later tried to ask Rice about the confession when she was sober, but she allegedly rebuffed the questions in anger. On the 16th of March 2022, Rice was arrested at the Minot Air Force Base, where she worked as a civilian. She was taken to Ward County Jail and released the next day on $120,000 bond. Rice is due back in court on April 21st, according to court records. The Minot Police Chief John Klung did not want to provide more details in the evidence that pointed to Rice. I think the turning point in this case was just really trying to pull all that information together and put it in an order that made sense. It just took a little bit of refocusing and a lot of paying attention to the finer details. My heart goes out to the family. I wish we could have solved this sooner, but at the same time, I'm glad to say that we have the person responsible in custody. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the depths of unsolved mysteries. Cold cases not only challenge our understanding of the past, but also ignite our curiosity and determination for answers. Remember to subscribe to stay updated on our latest investigations. And if you have any information regarding the cases we've covered, don't hesitate to reach out. Together, we can shed light on the shadows of the past and bring closure to those who seek it. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay curious, and never stop seeking the truth.